Hi, this is Mark. Congratulations, you have found this amazingly awesome show. Chances are you're listening to it right now on whether it's iTunes or Stitcher Radio or some other mobile app that allows you to stream this amazingly awesome show to your ear holes. And I can't stress how awesomely amazing this show really is. But did you know that you can also catch the latest episode of this show on the Tangibound Network? That's right. Go check out tangiboundnetwork.com. You can look them up, and you can listen to it right there. It's even mobile-friendly. What more could you ask for? Which means you can pull it up on your iPhone or your Android, even your Windows phone. Yeah, who has one of those? But still, point remains, you can do it. You can do it. Check it out, tangiboundnetwork.com. Listen to this show, the latest episode, every time. Check it out.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
Hello, everybody. This is the MLBeers podcast with your hosts, Andrew Sherman and Phillip Corwin. Phillip, how you doing today? How's your week been? It's, we've been just passed through the 4th, and go ahead.
I think I freed them a little too hard.
I don't think there's ever really a freedom too hard. I really don't think there is something like that, to be honest with you. You just did the usual American thing to do.
Of drinking a case of PBR. We smoked 2 whole chickens, corned beef, and some rack of ribs, and just shot fireworks all day.
Nice. For me, my 4th of July was kind of on Sunday. I cooked some burgers and brats, had an 18-pack of PBR as well.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, which I was like, oh man, I had to get it because it was like I had to go cheap and I had to go American. So why not PBR and over dastardly Budweiser? But anyway, keep on going.
Yeah, no, PBR is a solid way to go. Like if I'm gonna go cheap, that is the exact route I take.
Mm-hmm. And also, it's like when you think about Budweiser and PBR, it's like you have a beer that's a macro, and it's, I guess, good for the masses, but then you have PBR that's, used to be big back in the day, not as much anymore, but it has that nice Great American Beer Festival gold medal on the front. And that, right. It's like, that's kind of like the security for any craft beer connoisseur, is like, do you go with, you go with something cheap, but do you go with something that's macro and everybody gets it and you know what it tastes like, versus a beer that is good for the, for the hobbyist drinkers and enjoy something that has won the gold medal at the Great American Beer Festival or GABF. So,
right. So if any craft beer drinker is going to justify it, that'd be the way they'll do it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And also, I have to say, Pabst has done really well with their marketing towards the craft beer connoisseurs by having ridiculous tap handles, having creative box art. Because I think the box art that I had was like the Pabst Blue Ribbon monster with tentacles, like eating part of the logo or something. It was really cool. I really enjoyed that.
So the marketing team is doing something right.
Exactly. Much better than Budweiser, which Budweiser came out with a 4th of July commercial.
Always.
Well, I mean, they do a lot of commercialing. I think the one weird thing, it wasn't weird. It was kind of cool. It was just, it had Adam Driver, which most of the people should know who Adam Driver is, which is a.k.a. Kylo Ren from the
So,
new
funny
series
story.
of the trilogy. What's up?
They say that he was a Marine and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and he was. I'm not taking that away from him.
Mm-hmm.
But he actually never was deployed.
Yeah. Actually, in that commercial, he kind of explains how it all happened.
How he broke his shoulder and stuff.
Yeah, like the commercial, just to give a quick synopsis of it, it's Adam Driver delivering a girl a scholarship from Folds of Honor, which is a wounded warrior type of charity, and how she got it was, writing in an essay and all that stuff. But she explained that her dad was training to go into Iraq, the Gulf War, and he had a similar injury to where he became disabled, and that's what happened. And so Adam Driver drives in, quote unquote, and gives her the scholarship, and he explains how he had a similar injury during training, and he kind of felt that guilt and all that stuff. And it was a really good commercial. I really enjoyed it. It was definitely American,
Yeah.
And so that was kind of like the one enjoyment of all of it. But, that is really our second part of our name, the beers part. But we're here today to talk about the great first half of this crazy, but now is kind of calmed down season of the MLB. So, anyway, the first half, what has happened? We've had Aaron Judge come out of nowhere hitting home runs. Same thing with Cody Bellinger out in LA. We've had teams where we weren't expecting a whole lot to leading the division until almost the All-Star break. We've had teams where we thought they were going to do well just collapse underneath their feet. Just a quick take before we, actually get into this. What is the one surprising thing that you've seen so far in this season, Phil?
Most surprising thing?
Mm-hmm.
I guess you could. I would say Aaron Judge.
Okay.
Like you talked about, because up until this point, he's never hit more than 20 home runs.
Mm-hmm.
And he's at what, 28 now?
He's at 30. He just last night broke Joe DiMaggio's rookie season record for most home runs in a season. Well, for a rookie. So, and it's only halfway through the season, so expect 70 plus out of this kid.
At this point, yeah.
Kidding. We will never see a 70 plus performance unless he puts a little juice in him. But I just called him out. No, I'm kidding. I did not call out Aaron Judge, but I'm just saying I'm calling out Barry Bonds for his 70 plus season with the juice. But that's your one surprise thing. My surprise take was the San Francisco Giants, even though I believe that I believe they were the team that were the first one out of the my predictions at the start of the season. They just pretty much completely faltered. Right now they're 34 and 54. They are last in the NL West. I could also say that the New York Mets is another team that I was kind of disappointed with. But if as a player-wise, surprised-wise, I have to say it's kind of the same thing with Aaron Judge. The two rookies, pretty much, just coming in, just blasting the ball, just really outshining what they have now at their teams. You got
Aaron Judge, who, like you said, he has 30 home runs, but he's not hitting 260. He's hitting 330.
Mm-hmm.
And he has an OPS of a 1.149 and a WRC plus of a 198.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, he's just on fire. It's hard to argue with.
Yeah, and, you can kind of say it's almost the same with Cody Bellinger in a way. He's not having statistical numbers like Judge, where he's hitting 300. I believe the last time I checked at his numbers, he was hitting like 260, 270. Normal boom or bust type of numbers. But he's just done so well, and really, at the moment, he's their outfielder, and he plays first base. I think he's been playing first base more than the outfield. But that's kind of the weird thing, though. You had Adrian Gonzalez for the Dodgers doing so well for, how many years, and now he's finally regressing. And then once he gets injured, it's all Cody Bellinger. And you kind of see that with making a football reference. When Alex Smith was with the 49ers, he was doing so well, then he got injured. Colin Kaepernick came in, and he just wiped the floor for the 49ers. So that's right now my surprise look at things with the first half. But let's look at the first half as a whole now. We have really the best team in baseball so far being the Los Angeles Dodgers with a 59-29 record. Then the Diamondbacks are up there. We also have
the Astros at 58-28.
58-28. Well, I have 59-28, but this is coming from Fangraphs.
I'll say I'm using Baseball Reference for standings, so they might not have updated after last night.
Oh, Baseball Reference. That's gonna be our great debate one of these days. Which one do you use? Which one do you prefer? Baseball Reference or Fangraphs? That's gonna be an upcoming debate sooner or later. But anyway, we've had the Astros, which we called. We have the Dodgers, which we called. Then you look at the other teams like Washington. What's up?
We called that.
Yeah, we've called Washington. We knew Washington was gonna win it, but we weren't expecting to roll out. We weren't expecting them to just roll completely.
No.
We had Cleveland, which now they're finally at the top of this Central. Then we had Boston, finally at the top. Finally at the top of their division. The one thing that we haven't really got on, and still looking at a weird. This is coming from me. This is coming from a guy that has to pay attention to this division, and that's the NL Central. But what can you say about the standings so far? Besides, we're just calling it right at the moment.
That the Brewers aren't third in their division, and that somehow they have pretty much a 5.5 game lead.
Yeah,
like no one saw the Brewers being able to do this.
Hell, I didn't even see the Brewers doing this. I believe I had them fourth, Cincinnati last, and then Pittsburgh at second, and St. Louis Pittsburgh being third, then St. Louis second, and then the Chicago Cubs being first. But you can kind of look at the Brewers are doing as a team offensively. Mm-hmm.
As an offense, they're hitting 255 with a 779 OPS. They're right at a 99 WRC plus, 309 batting average balls in play, and they have 135 home runs, which I believe that leads the NL.
Let's take a gander real quick. And it does. Actually, they lead the NL, and they are second in all of baseball, which, oddly enough, that the Astros are first. Well, not oddly enough for that, but the Rangers are third, the Rays are fourth, the Yankees are fifth. I believe half their home runs are from Aaron Judge. That's just a joke. But the Mets have the 6th. They're ranked 6th out of home runs. But when looking at this like Brewers club, not only through looking through the stats, you also got to look at their play. Right now, they're doing well at home. I mean, all of the teams are doing well at home besides the Mets, besides the San Francisco Giants. But staying with the Central, everybody's doing well. I mean, one team is under 500 at home, and that's Pittsburgh, but they're literally just like a couple points under 500. But when you look at the road records, and I brought this up last week, I believe, or 2 weeks back, when we talked about the NL Central. I mean, not the NL Central, but the NL West and AL West. I talked about this, and we brought this up, that you can win at home, but you got to win on the road to prove something, like Houston has done, 32-10. The Dodgers, Arizona, and Colorado, those teams have done well on the road too. Especially, I believe, when we were talking, it was the Colorado Rockies that had the best road record in the NL West. But the reason why Milwaukee is doing so well, having a nice 49-40 record, is that their road record in the NL Central is above 500. We have Milwaukee with a 23-17 road record. We go down the standings. The Cubs 19-25, St. Louis with a 17-21, Pittsburgh with a 19-25, and Cincinnati with a 14-29. So I can reiterate this, I can make it rhyme, I can do whatever about it, but you just got to win on the road, and that's what Milwaukee's doing. That's why they have a 5-game winning streak so far. That's why they're in the last 10 games they're 8-2, and right now the funny thing about it, we talk about Judge doing so well. The Yankees, in this matter, lost to them last night 9-4, and so Milwaukee is solidifying themselves as a contender this year that is really left field.
Yeah, that's where they're coming from. And, you look at other teams that are at the second or first place in their division. The Yankees are 19-24 on the road.
Mm-hmm. And, really looking at that, you got other teams like that too, where, like you said, the Yankees 19-24 on the road, but then you have Boston. They're just barely, on the upside of the 500 mark on the road with the 25-23.
But then you look at the team like the Twins, who are 19-26 at home, but 25-15 on the road.
Yeah, and this is just, it's becoming more of a factor every time. Nobody really, critiquing, I guess, all the major sports networks. Nobody talks about them winning on the road. Nobody hardly talks about road wins as much when they're actually a team on national TV and they're playing on the road. But outside of that, nothing. I have not heard anything. But then again, I'm minimal on my sports networks. But what were you going to say, Phil?
The Indians are kind of in that same boat, where they're 19-23 at home and 26-16 on the road.
Mm-hmm. And that's been kind of the difference maker between these teams, is that I think Cleveland, why they're doing so well, is because of that road record. But it also shows that they got to win at home too, because
and that's where the Royals have come up and crept up behind them, where they're 24-19 at home and 20-21 on the road.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can play 500 or a little bit better on the road and play well above 500 at home, you have a recipe for success.
Yes,
and like
go
the
ahead.
Royals in their last 30 games are 20-10,
which is actually another surprising thing.
Yeah, because not even a month ago I was on here talking about what are the Royals going to do at this time, because no one saw them be able to make a run like this.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, you're right. You are right about that. Nobody saw nobody saw them making a run. Nobody saw Toronto making that run in May, where they were just, they were 10-20, and then they went 20-10. Now they're 40-46. Yeah, that's a bit of a bad record. But
in their last 30, though, they're 13-17.
Yeah, so they've had their ebbs and flows this year with the team. Is there anything else to talk about, just standings wise, or anything else of that nature before we talk about the best teams of baseball through the eyes of stats?
I was still just what the Colorado Rockies have been able to do.
Mm-hmm.
I know they're no longer at the top of their division or anything like that, but they're competing with the freaking Diamondbacks and Dodgers. But it's a very good possibility that we see 3 teams from the NL West in the playoffs.
And it was just barely 3 to 4 years ago where we had teams from the NL Central take the 3 spots, their division and the 2 wild card spots. And now, but see, the other thing about that too is that the other 2 teams, the San Diego Padres and the San Francisco Giants, they're not that good. Pittsburgh had to fight for their 3rd spot. St. Louis had to really march to get that first place spot, stay there. The Chicago Cubs back in 14 or 15, 14. That was they really pressured. I mean, they were the top 3 teams in all of baseball, but it was just that when you look at it now, those teams kind of had specifically Pittsburgh kind of had to fight for that, fight for their position in 13. I believe in 14 it was just more of that there was just a huge gap. But it was just that the NL Central was good overall. The NL West this year is just, you're either, like I like to say, boom or bust, which is true.
Yeah, because if you look at the Rockies right now, if we were to play the playoffs, it would be Nationals, Brewers, Dodgers, Diamondback, Rockies. The Cubs would be out, and so would the Braves.
Mm-hmm. Which again is kind of odd to see the Braves up there when we didn't have them up there at all. I had them at 4th.
No.
I believe you had them at 4th or 5th.
Yeah.
Because
it was the Braves and the Phillies. I had them at the bottom, and then I went Nationals, Mets, Marlins.
Same here. It was just the same because, again, it just looked good. But anyway, any other things that you see on this? Because when I look at this, and I'm just pondering what else to say. I mean,
well, you can look at it too. What's fun is if you look at the AL League, you see who's competing for the wild card spots. Right now, you got the Red Sox, Indians, and Astros all in the lead. Then across the board, you got the Yankees at 44-39, Royals 44-40, Angels 44-45, Tampa Bay 45-42, Twins 44-41. So you got 2, 4, 5 teams competing for 2 spots.
Yeah,
those teams are slightly above 500, if not just a game below 500. So it just makes for it's very interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And when you
because it's a discrepancy between where the NL is and where the AL is. The NL has pretty much set itself, except for the Central Division. If the Brewers keep playing like they are, and the Cubs and Cardinals keep doing what they are, then it'll just play out. But right now, like I said, if we were to play the playoffs, it would be Nationals, Brewers, Dodgers, Diamondbacks, and then Red Sox, Indians, Astros, and Yankees and Rays.
It would be, on my side, I've got MLB.com's standings up, and it would be the Yankees and the Minnesota Twins. And, and Kansas City's only, with this, Kansas City is only a half game back. Tampa Tampa Bay is only a game back. I mean, you were right on the money still. You got 5 teams that are really competing for those 2 spots. I mean, you could add Seattle too, which they won last night over the Athletics 7-2, which I was a little bit
the Royals just swept the Mariners.
Royals just swept the Mariners. That's another thing too. The Royals just swept the Mariners, so you can kind of see the disparity of the teams so far.
The series before that, they took 3 out of 4 against the Twins.
Mm-hmm. And that's what you got to do. That's what you got to do. You know, you got to
win series.
Win.
And
series.
right now they're playing the Dodgers. They lost 6-1 last night, so we'll see what happens.
4-1.
The last time the Royals played the Astros, they won the series.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's when they kind of started their 20-10 last 30. Mm-hmm. So we'll see how they compete against the teams like the Dodgers. But if they can win 2 out of 3, this team's coming around. Because you got a guy like Mike Moustakas, who's 3rd in the league in home runs.
Mm-hmm.
And, he'll actually be maybe break that Steve Balboni record that's been around for fucking too long.
Isn't it 2 decades? 3
1985.
decades? 3 decades.
Someone has not hit more than 36 home runs as a Royal since 1985. Just imagine how hard it is to be a Royals fan.
Oh. Sorry for that, folks, if you can hear me laugh in the background. Steve Balboni, if you don't know, was not really the greatest Royal of all time. I mean,
no.
You had George Brett, and he couldn't beat Balboni's record.
Yeah, but, George Brett, he hit his fair amount of home runs, but he was also a 3,000 hit player.
Yeah, he was more of a contact guy, just straight up, hearing about him. Straight up contact.
But Steve Balboni, folks.
Yeah, look him up.
Yeah, look him up. He looked goofy, too. He had those goggles and shit on. It was great.
Hey, don't hate a man that has to wear goggles. I have to wear glasses. Well, I guess. I don't have to wear these, but I wear them for my eye protection for computers.
Dude, I went to the eye doctor, man, it was probably like 4 or 5 years ago. This is going to be totally off subject. But I did the eye test and everything, and I was getting a checkup, and he came back. He's like, well, you don't need glasses. I was like, okay. I kind of figured. He's like, yeah, you pretty much have better than 20/20 vision. I'm like, the fuck does that mean?
That I've never heard of that in my entire life.
Neither have I. I didn't believe him.
Yeah, I wouldn't believe him either because I thought
20/20 was it. I thought that was the line in the sand. Like, you could see shit. You don't need glasses.
Yeah, because I thought this is the numberings. It's kind of like the whole 20/80 scale. It's like if you're at 20/20, you have perfect eyesight. If it's lower than that, then you're nearsighted. If it's farther than that, you're farsighted. So, and I haven't even checked my eyes in a very long time, but I believe the last time I checked, it was like one was 20/20, one was like 25/20. So.
Oh. Yeah. No, I don't know. I just know I've never need glasses.
Again, these are. I know the people can't see what the hell I'm wearing, but I'm wearing Gunner glasses, which are computer eyewear glasses, which I wanted to get because I'm on the computer most of the time. I try to be on the computer most of the time, but if I'm going to be on it for like 3 hours, at least I want something comfortable, and these are they're really a really nice, comfortable pair of protective computer glasses. So, if I can.
I've always wondered what they are. I just didn't want to ask you.
No, that's fine. They also make prescription versions of these, but which actually still have these computer, the yellow lenses to protect from the blue rays, or whatever they call them, blue screen lighting or whatever. But yeah, that's the reason why I wear them, is so I can kind of stay focused, see what the hell I'm doing and all that stuff. but I do not have the quote-unquote Steve Balboni googly goggles, you say. So, anyway, back to it, shall we? And what do you want to look at first? I know we kind of talked about talked about individualism with Judge and Bellinger and other players. We've talked about,
and we've kind of done that all year. We've kind of focused on what players are playing well for the team.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of what I brought up is I wanted to look at the teams that are leading their division. Why are they leading their division?
Okay.
So, like, looking at the team as a whole.
Okay. So, I'm just going to start it out. We're just going to go through this. American League, why are the Boston Red Sox 4.5 games ahead of the Yankees?
Well, let's do some comparison.
Okay.
Right now, I'll run through their batting stats, and then we'll run through their pitching stats.
Okay.
Right now, the Red Sox has 428 runs scored to Yankees 469.
Okay.
But their contact rate is at an 80.3%, as the Yankees are at 75.2%. The Yankees strike out about 4% more.
Mm-hmm.
The Red Sox are at a WRC plus a 98, as the Yankees are at 112.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously, the Yankees are hitting 130 home runs to the Red Sox 90.
Mm-hmm.
But the Red Sox are batting 269, and the Yankees are batting 265 with a 797 OPS,
mm-hmm.
and the Red Sox have a 763 OPS.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is where the Red Sox get better than the Yankees. Pitching, they have a 384, as the Yankees have a 404.
Mm-hmm.
They have a 75.2% left on base, compared to 72.5%. They're striking out batters 25% of the time, as the Yankees are striking them out 24.4% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Their fielding independent is a 380, as the Yankees are a 401. And their total ERA is a 432 for the Red Sox and a 413 for the Yankees,
mm-hmm.
and a 13.3 WAR compared to 11.2 WAR. And the Red Sox have used 261 relief innings to the Yankees 268. So, if you want to argue what's doing better for the Yankees compared to the Red Sox, is their home and away records.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to argue that these teams are so close in pitching and batting
mm-hmm.
that it just kind of comes down to the small things.
Uh-huh.
And I've not watched enough Red Sox and Yankees to really know.
Mm-hmm.
But if I have to pick a team, I'm always going to pick pitching.
Mm-hmm.
And if they have a 0.20 lower ERA,
mm-hmm.
I'll take it. And that's a total team ERA as well.
Mm-hmm.
Starting pitching and bullpen.
Yeah, looking at it from Fangraphs, and, you can look at just the starters or just relievers. I bet you can do that, too, on Baseball Reference.
Yeah.
I'm
using Fangraphs for my leaderboards.
Okay.
I'm only using Baseball Reference for standings.
Gotcha. Really looking at it, separating the starters and relievers. Looking at the relievers, though, they have that nice, comfortable 15-7 record. Compared to the Yankees 11-15, they also have more saves for 25-17, which really, to me, that's really out of the park. They also have their bullpen has a better ERA, which is a pure 3 to a 3.75 against the Yankees. The numbers to me are just better. Their left on base percentage is an 80.4 to a 72.3. I could talk about home run to fly ball percentage. I could talk about ground ball percentage. That's more, to me, that's more of starting pitcher stuff. But if you also look at it too, the Yankees do strike out more guys by less than 1 on the K per 9. But when you look at walks per 9, they do give up just about 1 more walk than the Red Sox. And that's that's where the Red Sox kind of dominate, cuz I know you love the pitching. That's your thing. And that makes sense. I'm more of a hitting guy. And really just looking at it all from, the first half, just batting wise, you already talked about how they're just back and forth with everything.
And that's what it is. Like, at this point, trying to choose between the Yankees and the Red Sox, it's kind of nitpicky of like what you prefer as a fan and as a guy that watches baseball regularly. Like, do you want a team that's going to blast home runs but hit for a lower average and strike out a little bit more, and then their pitchers can play with the lead and they might let guys score a little bit more, compared to the Red Sox, who hit for a little bit higher average, have a higher contact rate, higher and a lower strikeout rate as a team? Are you going to, it kind of depends on what you prefer at that point.
Yeah, exactly. So this is my question to you, and I'm going to kind of answer the first part of it, where it's, how do you see, so what is the one thing that the Red Sox could keep their lead and win the division, and the other thing being, what is the one thing that they could, what is the one thing out of all the stats for being a reason the Red Sox could lose? For me, I'm going to answer the first question. And for the Red Sox to really, to keep winning their division, is having a low strikeout rate. And I know that sounds a little bit ridiculous. They're only 4 points underneath. They have an 18.1% strikeout rate to compare to the Yankees' 22.6. And, lower strikeouts kind of tend to lead to more, walks, even though the Yankees have a better walk rate than the Red Sox, like you brought up, with a 10.2 for the Yankees and the Red Sox being a 9.3. You take those together, and I wish that I had the K rate minus walk rate, and you can tell the difference that with these there's a less than there's a 8%. That's what I'm looking at, or 9% for the Red Sox. When you look at the Yankees, the difference is pretty much 12%. So when you have it more together, more towards the average, I think the Red Sox, with those two stats, the Red Sox will be a team that will just keep on winning, keep on showing that, yeah, Yankees, you have a cool player in Aaron Judge, but we got the team. We got the killer bees out in the outfield. So what is the one stat that worries you about the Red Sox and how that stat could be the demise of the team?
You go back to their batting.
Okay.
It would be their WRC plus and their batting average of balls in play.
Okay.
Right now, they have a 309 in batting average of balls in play and a 98 WRC plus, compared to the Yankees at a 112 and a 37 and a 312.
Okay.
Yeah, 112 and 312. That just threw me off. So, if you want to maintain that lead on the Yankees, if you're not going to be hitting home runs, you need to create runs other ways and get over that hump of 100 of the average of WRC plus. Because you look at the Mariners and they have a 103 and a 309 batting average of balls in play and a 268 average. So just that team or 264 average, I'm sorry. So just that team alone, they just need to score more runs. It sounds like John Madden. You need to score more runs for you to win. But it's the simple things. And if they can do that, then I think they can kind of solidify their top spot at the AL East.
Okay. That was kind of another concerning thing, that when I was looking at the stats, that was, like I said, another concerning thing. They have a nice, base on ball, batting average when ball's in play, but their WRC plus is under 100. Yep. So that was.
And if they're not going to hit 100 plus home runs by the All-Star break, they need to do something a little different.
Yes, and that that might where the levy will break. So now on to let's just go from American League to National League. So now we get to talk about last year's NL pennant winners, the Cleveland Indians. So this team, looking at
I thought you said we're going to the NL.
Well, I mean, we can go to the NL. If I said, sometimes I just go with the flow.
No, let's go with the Central. Let's just keep the AL rolling.
Yeah.
Let's keep that train rolling.
Let's do that. So that's what I was trying to do, and I guess I mixed up my lettering, which that happens all the time. But anyway, AL Central. We have the Cleveland Indians, last year's winners of the American League. They just got back up to leading their division after meddling through second and third, and I think there was a little bit of a dip at fourth, but now they're back at it. And what, looking at this team, comparing them to, I believe it's the Minnesota Twins, this team, they're average.
And that's what we were running into with the AL Central.
Mm-hmm.
Is I'll run down the top three teams because the Twins and the Royals are practically tied for second place right now.
Mm-hmm.
Indians are hitting 262. The Twins are hitting 254.
Mm-hmm.
And the Royals are hitting 249.
Mm-hmm.
WRC plus 105. Twins
Mm-hmm.
at 96 and the Royals at 85.
That might be a good thing. I'm just saying.
1985.
And
just looking at the team from a batting standpoint, like I said, they're all pretty much about even.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, the Royals are hitting 249, and that's about 13 points below than what the Indians are hitting, and the Twins are hitting 254, and that's about 6 points.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the difference is the Royals that hit 105 home runs, Twins hit 99, and the Indians hit 102.
Mm-hmm.
Runs scored, it goes starting with the Indians 414, 397, and 356.
Mm-hmm.
But the Royals, you got to keep in mind, had a terrible April.
Mm-hmm.
And almost as bad as a May. But we talked about them earlier in the show where the last 30 games have gone 20-10.
Mm-hmm.
So some of these stats, we could refine it to just do the last month or so, and I bet the Royals would probably be up on the Indians and Twins right now.
Mm-hmm.
But as a season as a whole, the Royals are the third best team in that division.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got to look at what the pitching's doing, because that's that tends to be a part of baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And Indians have the third best ERA in the league at a 3.81. Compared to the Royals at a 4.21, and then the Twins have a 4.83.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I don't think the Twins will be able to maintain where they're at, because their pitching is Edwin Santana?
Irvin Santana.
I was going to say Edwin Jackson. I'm like, that's not right. Irvin Santana and Jose Barrios.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the only two guys that have really, starting pitching wise, that have been able to pitch for him well.
Mm-hmm.
As for the Royals, they have, Danny Duffy's coming back. Jason Vargas has apparently become a Cy Young candidate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you look at their bullpen. Herrera has figured out his issues.
Mm-hmm.
Peter Moylan has pitched, I think, before he let up a run the other night. He had like a 26-inning straight scoreless streak.
Mm-hmm.
Soria has done the same thing. Mike Minor has really stepped up for him. I talked about him in the All-Star selection show.
Mm-hmm.
So you look at guys like that, and that's why this last 30 games, the Royals have been able to do what they've done.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the same thing with the Indians. A month ago, they're second or third in the division with the Royals.
Mm-hmm.
But their pitching has really turned them around. That's what was their early struggles. And, they're 381, 74.2% left on base. They're striking out guys 27% of the time. That's a 10.08 K per nine. Mm-hmm. Their FIP is a 362. Their total ERA is a 408.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's kind of why we thought the Indians would be able to maintain their top spot at the Central at the beginning of the year. Because they're bringing in really strong starting pitching. Mm-hmm. And they brought in Encarnacion. Yeah. And then they got Carlos Santana. They got Francisco Lindor, Jose Ramirez, Michael Brantley.
Mm-hmm.
They had those top 5 guys, plus a strong starting pitching and relief pitching. So,
yeah, and
like we talked before the show, baseball tends to work itself out.
Yeah, and you look at it right now. You have Carlos Carrasco with a 3.44 ERA. Corey Kluber, again being in the Cy Young talks with a 2.85 ERA. You have Clevenger, which he's only pitched 53.2. I believe he's injured at the moment. He had a 3.35 before injury. Then you have Trevor Bauer and Josh Tomlin, 2 guys that you were looking at to be good pitchers, your nice 3, your 4 or 5, and they're not producing the numbers like they were last year. You have Bauer with a 5.24 ERA. You have Josh Tomlin with a 5.90. He isn't throwing strikeouts. Trevor Bauer is, though, with a pure 10 K per 9. But that was kind of the difference between last year's Cleveland Indians and this year's, is that they were solid throughout the year. Right now, you only have 2 guys that are solid out of the 5, and 2 of them, I believe, are injured. Danny Salazar and Mike Clevenger being injured, as said by the innings pitched so far during the season, and I don't have my injury report up, but it's just, that was the thing about the Indians last year that's kind of the difference maker this year. So,
yeah, and you hit on all those guys, and with the Royals, it's getting unseemingly good production out of Jason Vargas.
Mm-hmm.
With the injuries that have happened to the starting rotation. Danny Duffy was hurt they put him on a 10-day DL, but he's been out for he made his first start last week, so he's out almost 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Nathan Carnes, a starting pitcher they went in with, he had thoracic outlet syndrome surgery. He's out for the year.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Strahm is out for the year because he tore his knee.
Mm-hmm.
They have gotten good spot starts out of Jacob Junis, Eric Skoglund, and Travis Wood, ex-Cub, came out and gave a really solid 5 innings, but you could tell once his pitch count got up around 80 or so is when he started getting hit around because things started getting left up in the zone. But that's expected because, he has been a bullpen pitcher, so he has not worked that many.
Yeah, and he's relatively young, and he hasn't had, major league experience until this year. So,
yeah. And so when you got guys like that and they're still able to be second in the division, you'll be all right. But, we talked about the Twins. The Twins pitching is what's really hurting them. They are hitting a lot better than the Royals, but if you can't pitch, you're not going to win a game.
And
so,
that's true.
Besides Central, that's really that's all I got to say about them, because there's really not. It's muddled.
Yeah, it is muddled, and I mean, that's
any one of those teams could really run away with it in the second half of the season. And a month ago, we were talking about what would the Royals trade away, what would the Twins trade for, what would the Indians do. Now we can kind of argue that the Twins could still go out and make a move, but something that doesn't sacrifice the future. Same thing with the Royals, because the Royals, I've talked about it all year. This is the last year with their core team.
Yeah.
Hosmer, Moose, Kane, Escobar. This is the last year for all those guys.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, I don't think they trade any of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
And if they make any sort of move, I think it'd be a guy, like middle rotation guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like a number 3 kind of guy to go behind Vargas.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with the Twins. That's what they need. They need a pitcher. Indians, they don't really need help offensively, but if they can go out and get a pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see these 3 teams making a move to get a middle of the rotation type of guy. Not the Indians might step it up and go and get that top of the rotation guy, just kind of what the Royals did in 2015 when they went out and got Cueto and Zoibrist, because they knew that was their window and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure the Indians don't want to blow a 3-1 lead again.
Yeah, exactly. Again, only Cleveland teams know how to really justify for that. But anyway, of course, I'm going to ask this question again, but I'm going to let you take the brighter side, I guess. So what is the one stat that will keep the Indians at the top spot of the AL Central?
Indians at top spot of the Central.
I know, it's a difficult one to talk about.
I'm pretty sure they're going to have to if they're going to maintain, it's a guy to remain strong on the pitching front.
Mm-hmm.
I keep harping on it, but they have a good offense with the guys they have.
Mm-hmm.
If you have to look at the Indians and pick a weakness,
mm-hmm.
it is their back end of their rotation. They have a good bullpen with Cody Allen and Andrew Miller.
Mm-hmm.
Back end of the rotation, 3 through 5 guy. And if they can get Danny Salazar to come back and be healthy, Mike Clevenger to come back and be healthy, then it's a whole different story.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't have 2 guys in your rotation having over 5 ERAs.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's only so much your bullpen can do after that.
Yes.
So,
I mean, I'm seeing the effects right now in fantasy baseball with Trevor Bauer, but that's a whole different story about that. But the one thing that I see where it could become trouble for the Indians, and, just looking over it real quick, looking at everything that I can just compartmentalize through a little short glance, is that it's again with the pitching, and I think it has to be the opponent's batting average when ball's in play. And I know it's a statistic that it's a little different than what it is hitting wise. But if you look at it real quick, we bring up that they have a great ERA with a 3.81, third best in all of baseball. Compare it to the Twins and the Royals, they throw them out. They just shut them out. But when you look at the opponent's batting average when ball's in play, they have a 3.06 BABIP. But then you look at the Royals, they have a 3.01. And then you look at the Twins, which have a 2.94. And of course, the lower number is better, but it shows you that they might be more ground ball type of pitchers, but it shows you that there's the opportunity that the Indians, there could be that slip, there could be an error, there could be, something there. And that's
so the one thing with the Royals the past 4 years has been an emphasis on defense.
Mm-hmm.
They've been one of the teams that has emphasized defense will actually help you in a baseball game.
Mm-hmm.
And the pitchers know that. They know if they hit a ground ball to Esky, he'll be able to make that play.
Mm-hmm.
Gordon in the outfield, Kane in the outfield, Moustakas and Hosmer, and Perez behind the plate.
Mm-hmm.
Gordon, Escobar, Kane, Hosmer, and Perez have all won Gold Gloves.
Mm-hmm.
That's five guys in the infield and outfield. What do you want? Like, as a pitcher, that's what you want.
Mm-hmm.
You know that if you make a mistake out to left field or center field,
Mm-hmm.
Gordon or Kane will be able to cover that gap and take care of it.
And just to solidify my point even further, defensive WAR in baseball, the Royals are in the middle of the road with a 13.1. But then you look at 20th, which is the Twins, and they're negative 0.3. Then you have the Indians that are a negative 9.5. So that's where I'm just, when you start getting those hits out there for all those fielders to get them, you're realizing that there's going to be a point where the players, the opponents are going to have enough tape to probably try to beat the shift, try to, learn how to hit gappers, try to, get it through just the infield. And that could be the demise of the Indians, because let me see this real quick, because I want to make sure that they're not the highest, but they are sixth. They are 10 teams that are above 300 in opponent BABIP, with the Royals being 10th. But it's just that you have teams that kind of show the reason why they're not doing so well. You have the Giants with a 318. You have the Mets, 317. Orioles, 315. Teams that are under 500 records having heavy opponent BABIPs. Again, Tigers, 308. It's kind of like I said earlier, it's kind of an outlier, because you also have the Red Sox, a team that's leading their division, with a 308. Then you have the Blue Jays, the Pirates, with a 305 and 304 respectively, and the Padres with a 304. But it shows you that most of the time when an opponent has a higher BABIP, those are coming from teams that have poor win-loss records. So that's where the Indians could see their demise right there with the opponent's BABIP. So that's it with the AL Central. Now let's get on to the West. And it's to me, it's like, should we
everything Astro?
Yeah, it's like, should we even talk about this? Because
how the Astros are just dominant on the road, at home, hitting the hell out of the ball everywhere they go.
Not even only dominant on the at home, but dominant on the road too. That beautiful. It is top-notch quality 32-10 road record, which to me is just unparalleled to anybody else in baseball. And I don't even think I really want to talk about it, because now it's just a gloating game for the Astros. If you really look at it, the Astros have the best batting average in all of baseball. I'm pretty sure, just looking at it real quick without sorting it out, they have the best on-base percentage in all of baseball. They also have the best slugging percentage in all of baseball. Not necessarily they also have the best on BABIP in all of baseball. Best this, best
They have the best
that.
WRC plus. They have the best WAR.
Yeah.
The team is just overall dominant.
But then just now I'm thinking about it, and it just reminds me what the late great Muhammad Ali said. It ain't bragging if you can back it up, and that's
Exactly.
it. And that's what's happening here. The Stros right now have a 3.92 ERA. I believe it is fifth best in all of baseball. Then you look at the Angels, 4.23 ERA. Then you have the Rangers at a 4.42 ERA, and those are really the guys. Even though the Rangers are third. I had to make sure. The Rangers are, one of these teams that, they're kind of in the middle of somewhere. They're in the middle of, maybe we should trade, maybe we shouldn't. But then you look at the the Astros just really just dominant.
At that point, the Angels and the Rangers got to be looking at what they can do to get to the wild card, not what they can do to chase the Astros.
Yes, and
so they got to be looking at what the Yankees, Twins, and Royals are doing,
mm-hmm.
and see if they can chase them and go from there.
Mm-hmm.
Because at this point, unless something just catastrophic happens,
mm-hmm.
the Astros are just going to maintain this pace, and it's an insane pace. Like, they have 142 home runs, most in the AL,
mm-hmm.
and they have an 81% contact rate
mm-hmm.
and a 288 average. So they're not just hitting home runs.
Mm-hmm.
They're hitting literally everything.
Exactly. And that's been the thing. They've just been doing everything right, what they need to do. I mean, I'm still looking for outliers. Something. And you got to give credit to the Angels. Their pitching staff has a 75.3 left on base percentage compared to 74.5 of the Astros. So I'm like, all right, have fun with that. I mean, you can't really say anything about ground ball percentage because that's more seeing what the pitchers are, how they work. I mean, the Angels have a 41.3 ground ball percentage to the Astros 48%. But then it's like you look at the Astros, they still have that nice 311 walks per 9. The Angels have a 2.98 walks per 9, but the strikeout rate is a little bit lopsided with a 10.2 K per 9, while the Angels have an 8.36. And we could keep on talking about how well they're doing. Correa's doing well, even though he does become injured once every 2 weeks.
Springer's doing well. Carlos Beltran, the guy they went out to get, is doing well for him. Mm-hmm. Jose Altuve is doing his normal thing.
His 5'6" frame still raking it. Even though it's not home run rakeage, he's still getting that contact. He's still becoming that guy that's just getting that contact, getting those hits, getting on board, getting on base. And I don't think there's really anything to be like, what is the one thing to be why they can still be at the top of the division. I mean, everything is
I think the only thing we talked about last time was just if they start giving more at-bats to Marwin Gonzalez and taking them away from Alex Bregman.
Mm-hmm.
So if we look at that just a little further, the same thing is still really going on. Right now, Marwin Gonzalez has 69 games, 248 plate appearances to Bregman's 320. And Bregman's hitting 259, Marwin is hitting 313. You know, Marwin Gonzalez has 15 home runs and 37 RBIs, or 37 runs scored and 51 RBIs, but they're still giving everyday at-bats to Alex Bregman.
Yeah.
So at what point do you just, again, we talked about it last time. At what point do you just let Gonzalez take over third base?
And,
and I know he's their ultimate utility guy because he can play the outfield and the infield, but he seems like a guy that needs to be getting 500 plate appearances this season.
Just the Astros just give him a little bit more loving, That's all. That's what it is. That's
like if we got to pick on one thing, it's that. Because Marwin's coming in with a 1.8 WAR compared to Bregman's 0.9. Bregman's not even a replacement player above replacement level.
And
so,
I mean,
come on, Astros.
Yeah, and it just back to it again. Like I was saying, we could talk about what is the one thing that what is the one stat that will keep them at the top of the division. And it's almost kind of the same where it's like, what is the one stat that will break the Astros? And to be honest with you, it's kind of, it's kind of hard to say. I mean, walks per 9. I mean, it's this comparing it to the Angels or the Rangers. I mean, it's it's in the middle of the road. And so, I mean, 311. I think I said 345 earlier. I meant 311. Darn you, Fangraphs. But it's just that, just looking at it, it's kind of hard to really pinpoint everything else out of it. If you look at FIP, if you look at XFIP, you can look at home run to fly ball percentage. You can look at all these, and I mean, I guess the one thing that we talked about with the Indians is that they do have a high opponent BABIP at 296 compared to the Angels 287. But I mean, they're doing.
They have a higher potent offense, though.
Yeah,
and that's the difference. If the Indians had an offense like the Astros, then their high BABIP for pitching would not be as much as a concern.
Yeah, and that kind of reminds me a little bit of the Oakland A's in 2014. Their pitching was middle of the road, but they had great bats until they did their dumb trade with Billy Beane being a part of that.
And then, they ran into what would be the buzzsaw of the AL playoffs of the Royals.
Mm-hmm. Literally one of the greatest playoff games of all time. And ever since then, ever since that trade, they've just been whatever. But we're not here to talk about the Athletics. It's just, looking at it, the Astros, they have a really good pitching. They have really good position players. They have really good batting. That's what I'm trying to say. So it's kind of hard to really say anything about that. So, do you want to go on break? I'm going to keep this in. Do you want to go on break, or do you just want to keep on going? We're just about over an hour into this.
Let's take a break because my kids are yelling. So
I can hear that.
Yeah. So let me go remind them who's in charge.
Who's the boss? All right, Tony Danza, who's the boss? All righty, so since we're going to take a break here, we'll be right back for the second half. We'll be talking about second half predictions and the other side of the MLB. But first of all, like I said, we're just going to take a break. So we'll be right back here on the MLBeers podcast. Alrighty, folks, we're back for the second part of the MLBeers podcast. And, like we brought up before, we're going to talk about the National League. And first of all, we're going to be talking about the pretty much already done National League East, even though the Atlanta Braves are only 9.5 games back. But if you really look at it,
it would take something catastrophic for the Nationals just to tank that lead.
Not only that, you would also have to look at the two wild card teams, the Diamondbacks and the Colorado Rockies. But then again, I don't think anything like that's going to happen for those clubs. But why the Washington Nationals are doing so well, if you look at it, they have a nice 278 batting average. They have a 345 on base percentage, a 470 slugging. Being top of the leaderboards as a team. They have a nice BABIP at 317. Their ISO is almost at 2 at a 192. Their K rate is under 20%, which is always good. Their walk rate is just under 10%. We're at a 9.1. Their WRC plus is probably, I think it is third best in all of baseball with a 109 WRC plus. If you look at the batting side of the Atlanta Braves, it's just difficult. They have a 262 batting average, 325 on base, 408 slugging with a 308 BABIP, a 145 ISO. Their K rate is under 20%, which is good, at a 19.7. Their walk rate, though, is a 7.4. But you have to look at what else they've been doing. If you want to try to break these two teams down, their WRC plus for the Braves is a 90. Like I said, for the Nationals, it's 109, being the third best in all of baseball. Then you have the WOBA, which we kind of hardly ever talk about, but it's also another stat that is a must to talk about, is a 343 WOBA with a 313 WOBA for the Braves, the 343 being the Nationals. Then looking over at the pitching side of all of this, you have a team for the Nationals that have done well. Max Scherzer has done well. Steven Strasburg has done well. Gio Gonzalez has done well. Hell, even Tanner Roark has done well, even though he's not their best pitcher. But if you look at it real quick, they have a 4.11 ERA compared to the Braves, 4.68, 4.10 FIP to 4.68. Excuse me, real quick. Then you got to look at their K per 9 with a 9.11 compared to a 7.33. And I can just be like yada yada yada, yada yada yada, and all that stuff. But go ahead.
We're going on and on about the Nationals and the Braves, but that's because when you look at the East Division, everyone there besides the Nationals, it's a weak division.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about it right before we got back from break, but if you implant any other team from the AL, the Angels, Twins, Royals, Yankees, or Rays,
mm-hmm.
all of those teams are better than that second place team in the East.
Mm-hmm.
And they're giving a better chase
mm-hmm.
to the Nationals than what the Braves are going to be able to do.
Yeah, and it's not exactly mirrored, but it's almost mirrored to the AL West, because the Astros, again, we talked about it. They're
16 and a half games
16 and a half games back in front of the Los Angeles Angels. The Washington Nationals are only 9.5 games ahead of the Atlanta Braves. But when you look at the severity of it, the Washington Nationals and the Houston Astros have to do something catastrophic for their second place team in the division to really have it. What's the difference between the Angels and the Braves is that the Braves are really out of it in contention of the wild card.
Yeah, because they're competing with teams like the Diamondbacks, Rockies, and Cubs.
Mm-hmm. And the Atlanta Braves right now are 8 games back, and we talk about the Angels. They're only 3 games back from being in the wild card, and that's kind of that's the difference maker. And if you look at it again, being just looking at the numbers, win-loss records at homes and all that stuff, 25-18 for the Washington Nationals at home and 26-17 on the road. But when you look at the Atlanta Braves, they're both under 500 with those, a 20-22 record at home and 21-22 record on the road. And even if you're trying to compare it to the teams in the wild card, it's still no comparison at all. You have really, if you want to get close to it, the Colorado Rockies have the home record of 25-17. The Arizona Diamondbacks have a 33-13 home record. And I guess the best comparison is right here with the Arizona Diamondbacks having a road record of 20-21, with the Atlanta Braves, like I said, having a 21-22 record. But it's just, you look at it and you can just keep on going. We can nitpick all we want. But, the the Braves do have a better opponent BABIP at a 291 compared to the Nationals 295, but that's not really something to brag about when you have a left on base percentage of a 69.8% compared to the Nationals 73.8. And I know that's not, astounding where the gap between the two are big, but if you really look at it and just look at it as a leaderboard perspective real quick, the Nationals are 8th out of that. And then you have to scroll all the way down to get to the Braves at 28. And there's that nice 20-team gap between the two where, it's a fight. It's 4 points, 4 percentage points between them, but you have teams that are defining themselves like the Yankees, like the Cubs, like the Rangers, like the Cardinals, like your Royals and all that stuff. There's teams that are just better, and it's kind of hard to talk about a team that, we're still thinking. It's a surprise that the Atlanta Braves have done so well, but you look at how bad the division is, and it's still for a rebuilding team. It's good that they're winning. It's good that they're close to 500. But as the way to get into the playoffs, it's just solidifying that we were right. Even though even though they're not 4th or 5th in the division like we predicted.
But we were right that the Nationals will be able to run away with this.
Yeah, we were right that the Nationals will run away with this. We
thought the Mets were going to be a little better.
We thought the Mets were going to actually challenge a little bit. I know that.
Yep.
But that's not happening here. And we could be like, what's the one thing that's going to kill the Nationals? What's the good thing that will keep them up? Again, if you're doing the comparisons between the two, everything that they're doing right so far, they're just going to stay up there. And anything that's going to really, be a problem for them might be on the hitting side. You look at...
but they're a team that could go out and get what they're really missing is a solidified center fielder.
Yes, and that is...
And they're back into their bullpen. And if they see this as their window... Mm-hmm. You could see them, because they know they have the division in the bag, why not go out and get a solidified center fielder and a back end of a bullpen guy and just solidify your spot to the NLCS?
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of the other thing, is just really they just have to solidify their relievers. Right now for the Nationals, they have a 5.15 ERA compared to the Braves. If I can actually talk and actually find their name in this, they have a 4.36. So I think with the Braves, just doing a little quick glance, they're middle of the road. They're just middle of the road relieving. There's just nothing else compared. The Nationals have a really poor relief corps, but besides that, that's the one thing that could demise the Nationals, but right now...
That won't come until playoff time, though.
That won't come until playoff time. And since, like you said, they have this huge lead, they're going to go after guys to solidify the being center fielder and being being part of the relief corps. So now let's get down to the Central, my division. And we've already kind of talked about it earlier in the show, just teasing it a little bit, how the Milwaukee Brewers have such a good, have defied all odds pretty much, becoming a 49-40 team with a 49-40 record. So the Chicago Cubs really being disappointing, having a 43 all record, and the St. Louis Cardinals having a 41-45 record. Besides looking at the stats, because I've already talked about this, and I could literally reiterate what I said a couple of weeks back when I said this division can go to anybody, but teams have to do something in order to get better. Like I said, the Cardinals have to have They have to have their relief core better. I mean, and also they have to have some of their fielders be better, their batters be better. You can also talk about how Milwaukee is just getting lucky, and I still think it's lucky. And if you really look at it, they have a 4.08 ERA, which is actually sixth best in all of baseball. St. Louis that's out of all starters. St. Louis is fifth best with a 3.99 ERA, and the Cubs with a 4.59, and that's not working out for them. And then if you look at the hitting of the teams, you have the Brewers hitting 255, the Cardinals hitting 253. Then you have the Cubs hitting abysmal 240. Something that they're not. It's like when you look at last year, it's like, how the hell can they do that? And it's just, maybe it's that World Series hangover. And it's been kind of the thing that's been going on the past few years, where the team that has
Royals
won
happened in 2016.
Yeah, it's those teams that win the World Series are not going to make it to the playoffs again. It's difficult to, I guess now it's difficult to repeat in the playoffs, and I guess that's kind of a parody for baseball. And really, just looking at it, it's difficult to really say what team do. And again, these teams, the Cardinals and the Cubs, kind of have to fight for division. They can't fight for wild card because the wild card is, again, out of the grasp. Just, again, to solidify that, the Chicago Cubs are 6.5 games back out of the wild card, and the Cardinals are 8.5, which, I mean, is reasonable. I mean, not as they don't have better odds than what's going on in the American League wild card. But looking at it, they just have to just grind it out. And, of course, they have a better chance, like I said, to go for the division. The Cubs are only 4.5, and St. Louis is 6.5 games back. But I guess what I have to say is, and earlier we kind of, switched what is one thing that will keep the Milwaukee Brewers up and what will bring them down. And I'm going to answer both because this is my division. I'm kind of more concrete with it in a way. I pay attention to it a little more than all the other divisions. And really what's going to be the difference maker out of all these teams, and we kind of said it with the Nationals, and I think it's going to be with relieving. You have the Brewers with a 4.08 ERA. You have the Cubs with a 3.27, and you have the Cardinals at a 4.19. And the Cardinals, they haven't done well. You look here real quick. They have a 3.07 on base when balls in play. Opponents on base. Opponents BABIP. Brewers have a 2.98, which is better, and then you have Cubs, which is astounding. Which, for some odd reason, the Cubs, like I said earlier, they should be doing well, but their offense is a 2.40 batting average, 3.26 on base, and a 4.19 slugging. So what is the one thing that the Milwaukee Brewers have to do to stay up on top? And I guess it's kind of, what is the one stat that will keep them up top? And right now, if you really have to look at it, is that low ERA at 4.08. And you're just like, well, that's sixth. I mean, the Cardinals are up there, the Astros, Nationals, Diamondbacks, Dodgers. But what's the difference between those teams is that the Cubs have starters that are experienced as hell. They've won titles. Same thing with the Cardinals. They've won titles. The Milwaukee Brewers, not so much. You look at the players that have started for the Milwaukee Brewers. You have Zach Davies that started 18 games. You have Jimmy Nelson that has started 17, Chase Anderson with 16, Matt Garza with 13, and Junior Guerrero with 10. And there's others too with Willie Peralta, Tommy Malone, Brett Suter, and Paulo Espino rounding out 20 games, 15 games have started. But the thing about it is is that ERA. And you have Brent Suter right now, even though he's only started 2 games, he has that nice 2.53 ERA. Chase Anderson is the guy to look at, though, for them, 2.89 ERA. Then you have Jimmy Nelson with a 3.20 ERA. Matt Garza has a 3.98. And then you got to look at the others. And like I said, even though they have solid starters, you have the Cardinals with Carlos Martinez with a 3.40. Michael Wacha, 4.10. Mike Leake with a 3.12. Adam Wainwright, 5.48. And Lance Lynn with a 3.87. You know, a little bit higher than a couple of the guys, but not as bad, but it's not pretty, especially from a guy that has a 5+ ERA that should be somewhat dominant, but he is 36, I believe, or 35. And he's at his end of his career. But then you got to look at the Cubs, the team that won it all last year. What is it? John Lester, 3.94 ERA. Jake Arrieta, 4.33. Kyle Hendricks, 4.09. Then you have John Lackey, if I can talk, with a 5.20 ERA, and Eddie Butler. And the reason why I'm talking about this, because he's the only guy with plus 10 games started with a 3.86. And you could talk about Brett Anderson or Mike Montgomery, which they're both 5+ ERAs. Brett Anderson is a whole different story. I believe he's injured at the moment, but he has an 8.18 ERA. And I think that's kind of the boom or bust out of this. If the Brewers can still have that solid ERA, then they'll stay on top. But if that goes, then it could be anybody's ball game. And I mean, it's still anybody's ball game. Again, we can talk about it all day. But that's where it's going to be the difference maker in this NL Central. This a National League Central that a couple years back, like we said, brought 3 teams into the playoffs, and especially 3 teams that had plus 95+ win-loss records. So, wins, I should say. But I mean, that's it out of the Central. I mean, do you have anything to say, Phil? I know I took up all the airtime for that, but
yeah,
I had to make a point.
You sucked the air right out of it. No, not really, man. You hit it all. Like, if the Brewers are going to be able to maintain it, they got to keep what they're doing. If not, get a little bit better. Mm-hmm. And you could argue they could mm-hmm. defensive standpoint, mm-hmm. hit for a little bit higher average, hit for a little bit better WRC plus. Mm-hmm. But even then, no, they're really not doing. They're doing really well with the 255 as a team, mm-hmm. 135 home runs, 99 WRC plus, a WOBA at 331. They strike out quite a bit at 24.9%, which I think is one of the top 3 for mm-hmm. the National League. Mm-hmm. But as a team, for batting, they have a 12.6 WAR mm-hmm. compared to the Cubs at a 10.2, and the Cardinals at 10.2, Cubs at 11.7. Mm-hmm. So, no, if the Brewers want to maintain and make a run for the playoffs, upgrade somewhere out in the field.
And I think this is what it's going to be weird is that
Brewers are going to be buyers and not sellers.
Not only that, but are they going to make a team out of this? And what I mean is, are they going to have guys are they going to sign guys that are going to be, or get trades that the guys are going to be there for 2+ years? And this will kind of be the focal point, because this might be the only time that the Brewers, make a play for the playoffs. But then
they have a nice little window with a depleted Central Division right now, mm-hmm. with the Cubs not playing well. Mm-hmm. This might be the year where they can take advantage of that, because next year, if the Cubs come back stronger, because those guys, those same core will be around for them. This might be the window for them to do it.
Mm-hmm. And, that just kind of, you bring up the Cubs now being a 43 all team fighting for that division spot, kind of hard to fight for that wild card spot. Kind of leads us to the NL West, and it's all set. It's all set and done. Bye, folks. We'll talk to you later, pretty much. Look at it.
Look what the Dodgers are doing. Look how well the Diamondbacks are doing. Look how well the Rockies are doing.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about it in the beginning of the show.
It is just
the NL is going to be the Nationals, one team from the Central, and 3 teams from the West Division in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
The Rockies have cooled off, and I say significantly, but if the Rockies were in the East Division right now, they would be tied, if not a couple games, 1 or 2 games back of the Nationals.
Mm-hmm.
They have 2 teams that are better than the Nationals and they have 2 teams better than the Central Division too that aren't leading their division.
Mm-hmm.
So you look at such a strong division, and that what makes the Dodgers what they're doing so much better.
Mm-hmm. And just looking at it, I kind of wish you can look at all the stats by divisions instead of just the league. But Dodgers hitting a nice 256 batting average. Diamondbacks 261, even better. Rockies 269. Something that you really can't beat out of this. And you could just go down the line with on base percentage, slugging, WOBA, WRC plus, which the Rockies, surprisingly have a negative, well, not a negative, but it's the lowest out of all of baseball with a 79 weighted runs created plus. But I think it's they kind of put it in a neutral factor instead of a ballpark specific. So it makes sense. But the Rockies are still beating teams. Last night they won against the Chicago White Sox 12-4. So they're making runs created plus, weighted runs created plus is kind of more of your I think it adds ballpark factors, but it's looking at it as a team, it just averages it all up. And so even though they don't have that nice Astros 127 or the Yankees 112, it's just because of rounding, they just get that 79, but they're still hitting the shit out of the ball. And
at a 269 average.
Yeah.
That is second best in the NL right now.
Mm-hmm.
And the Diamondbacks at a 96 WRC plus and the Dodgers at 111.
Mm-hmm. And so it's not, again, it's just, it's averaging all out. But, just looking at it, you have the Rockies right now with a 23% K rate. You have the Diamondbacks at 23.3. You have the Dodgers at 22.9, which is kind of typical for those teams. Dodgers are a little better on their walking, though, with a 10.8 walk percentage than the Diamondbacks with a 6.8 and the Rockies with a 7.4. But, you got to look at the Giants. You got to look at the Padres. They have a 7. The Padres.
You don't have to because those teams are terrible.
Yeah, but just to solidify it even more, even though that should be #solidify. I'll just use that for a couple weeks now. 26% K rate for the Padres, 19.3 for the Giants, 7.5 walk rate for the Giants, 7.9 for the Padres. These teams, and also, again, a 228 batting average, a 242 batting average. Padres first, Giants second out of that. And it's done. It's set and done. And I guess, again, if we had to do what is the one thing to keep the Dodgers in the top of the division and what's the one thing that they have to do to keep themselves up there, and what's the one thing that they have to watch out for,
Just keep doing what they're doing.
Again, but
they could hit for a little bit better average.
That is one thing. They could do that because they are
Their
lower.
pitching is at the top of the league.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not struggling anywhere too much with their pitching. They have a 3.17 ERA. They have a 15 WAR. Their FIP is a 3.49. Their strikeout per nine is 9.69. Left on base is 78.5%.
Mm-hmm.
So their pitching is not struggling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even
So if you-
even relievers, they're not struggling. I mean, they're
No.
top two in starters and in relievers in ERA and FIP. So I mean, these teams are not gonna. I mean, the Dodgers are not gonna go away, lightly. It's going to be, again, it's just gonna be a hard fought to be playing, to get that top division spot. And like I said, it's going to be all about those road games. Dodgers right now have a 37-11 home record, but that 22-18 is a little bit concerning. But then again, if you look at the Arizona Diamondbacks, that nice 33-13 home record with a 20-21 road record. So it's just all of that stuff that's with the Dodgers, with the Diamondbacks, with the Colorado Rockies, and I'll just say this for the record, 25-17 at home and 26-21 on the road. It's going to be, like I've said a couple weeks back, probably 2 months ago, it's going to be a dogfight at the end. And I think that's one of the I think that's pretty much it. What's going to be the factor out of these out of these three teams to win the division, not necessarily be in the playoffs, but to win the division is going to be the Dodgers have to up their batting average. They're solidified. They just got to stay solid in pitching. The Diamondbacks are doing well pitching-wise. I mean, they're the second best in all of baseball with a 3.33 ERA. They are the fifth best in reliever ERA, and the Rockies will have to do better with a 4.40 ERA in the relieving spot and if I can find this really quick, maybe I should look at the name first before I actually should look for the number, right? With a 4.55
whatever works best.
Yeah, whatever works best. With a 4.55 ERA. That's the only thing the Rockies will have to do is just to have a better average with a better ERA with starters. The ERA relieving wise is good for them.
And if you think about it, if the Rockies can't win their division, they're only competing with the Cubs. Yeah, they're competing with the Cubs for that second wild card spot.
And they're 6.5 games ahead of them. So it's just
exactly. So if they can maintain that solid lead, and then I don't know if the Rockies will be much of a buyer at the trade deadline.
It will be up in the air. And it's, of course, if you're wanting to talk about who's going to buy what, who's going to do this for the trade deadline, Arizona, I think it's going to be more pitching. For the Dodgers, it's going to be hitting. For Colorado, it's going to be not only pitching, but starting pitching. And the question is, who are they going to get for the starting pitching? I mean, you can go with Miami. You can go with Atlanta. You could go, Tampa Bay. But see, they're close. And so if you had to really look at it, Pittsburgh, any team that's pretty much out of it. So Pittsburgh on way down to Philadelphia if you're looking at the wild card for the National League, and probably Detroit, Oakland, and the Chicago White Sox for pitching, because those guys are, even though they're 6.5, 7.5 for and 7.5 respectively for Detroit, Oakland, and Chicago, the White Sox, they're kind of almost out of it. And again, if you want to look at it through the division wise, they're 6.5. They're 6.5 game. They're 8 games back. With Detroit is 8 games back from Cleveland. Chicago White Sox are 9 games back, and Oakland is 21 games back from winning the division. So, the guys that would be up for it, Detroit, automatically I think of Justin Verlander. Oakland, I automatically think of Sonny Gray. Chicago White Sox, I think of Jose Quintana. And if you want to go relieving wise, you might go with Sean Doolittle from Oakland and David Robertson for the Chicago White Sox. And that would probably solidify the Colorado Rockies. But, I mean, the teams that are, trying to win the division, a.k.a. the Chicago Cubs and the St. Louis Cardinals, will probably go after them first because right now it's going to be a tough one to actually get into the wild card. So, I mean, that's it. I mean, that's really it to look at the first half at a whole. So, now we decided to talk about this at the break. We decided to go with 3 hot takes to end the show. 3 hot takes for the second half of the season. Phil, do you want to go first? Do you want to go one by one, or you just want to name all 3?
Let's go one for one.
Okay.
All right. The first one is the Milwaukee Brewers will lose the NLCS in 6 games.
So you're saying that they will make it to the playoffs?
Yes.
And okay, so I'm gonna write that down. No, I almost misspelled that. No. Yes, I'm literally writing this down as we go.
Oh, you're not typing it out?
No. Because I like writing better. And also I'm trying to look at my stuff too, what I'm going to say. Okay. I just chicken scratched it at the end. My prediction is that the Seattle Mariners, making it bold, even though I had them in the wild card spot earlier in this year, somehow being only 4 games back, make it into the playoffs, gives Houston a run for their money, and lose in the DS against the Astros.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. Bold prediction. Is it really bold that I say that Aaron Judge will win the platinum stick or whatever hitter award for the year?
Oh, you're thinking of the Silver Slugger award.
Yeah.
It's platinum glove, gold glove.
Okay.
Yeah. But you'll say he'll be a Silver Slugger.
Yes.
Which I don't know what the all around Silver Slugger award is, which is really weird. Because Silver Slugger is for you win it for your position on how well you done. Because Platinum Glove is the one where you're the best overall defensive player. So that's why I'm like, what is that? But anyway, so you're saying that Aaron Judge will be a Silver Slugger.
Yeah.
All right. I like that. That's
It's a safe pick right now when he's hitting 330 and 30 home runs.
Okay. That is written down in the nice little notebook that I have. Well, note paper that I have. Alrighty. Since you did one as a player, and I can choose whatever, but I like having at least one crazy player pick, I am going to say that the Royals will trade Eric Hosmer at the deadline, even though they're doing well right now.
I can't believe that. Who would they get? Who would they trade him for? Because he's hitting over 300 right now.
But also,
what kind of return would they get for him?
I have no clue. That's why it's a bold prediction. That's why it's a hot take.
All right. My last hot take. Man. All right. I'm going to stay away from picking something about the Royals because I talk about them too much.
Okay. Because I'll be talking about my Cardinals and my last one, and it's going to be a good one.
That as good as the Astros are, they'll lose in 7 games in the ALCS.
That is pretty bold. That is pretty bold. And for me, to make this one, I guess, grandiose for the show, and to talk about my team a little bit more, because, BFIB, hashtag, best fans in baseball.
You keep saying that like it matters.
It doesn't. It's a horrible thing. But the St. Louis Cardinals will go on a rebuild. They will sell at the trade deadline and rebuild. So that's what... So
that's not too far. That's not too...
It's not too much of a bold prediction.
When you say rebuild, you're not talking a solid 4 to 5 years. You're talking they'll get MLB-ready prospects and be competing in 2019 or 2018 and 2019.
So a restart.
Yes.
That would like John Mazalock said.
Is that what you're meaning?
Yeah. I think.
Okay.
Well, yeah, because I think they'll take. Well, it might be 3 years out. I think they'll take 18 and 19 out and worry about 2020. I think that will be the year that they'll be.
When you say rebuild, I think a solid 5 to 7 years.
5 to 7 years. That makes sense. I mean,
when you draft a certain player who's not going to be ready for about 3 years, and then he'll get 2 years of MLB experience, and then he'll start doing his thing. That's when I hear rebuild, I think a solid 5 years.
Okay, solid 3 or 5.
5.
Okay.
Anything before that is more of a restart, where you get some prospects that are about a year or two ready, or a year or two out from being ready, compared to a prospect that is needing 3 to 4 years before he'll be up.
You're right. I mean, you're right. And the reason why I say that, I never give any reason to Hosmer getting traded or Seattle making it to the playoffs as more of a reason than anything else. The reason why the St. Louis Cardinals will do a restart at the trade deadline is not only because they're 41-45 record, but also there's nothing good. There's nothing good about the team. And that kind of leads into, not saying another bold prediction, but it just solidifies me saying they are not going to make it to the playoffs. Even though I did say earlier this year they will get into the playoffs by the skin of their teeth. And this just shows that I have more of a belief that it is time for a restart, not a rebuild. Because, like you said, restarts and rebuilds are different. And John Mazalock said that in a press conference, I believe a week ago, that he wanted something not as a rebuild, but as a restart. And I think this will be the restarting period. There's going to be a lot of changes, even more from what it's done. I mean, they've already gave up Johnny Peralta. They axed Jonathan Broxton. What the difference is, we might see some of our beloved players, some of the beloved players of St. Louis go. And it might be the time where I know that Adam Wainwright might go. I mean, sooner than later. Molina might go sooner or later. But I think it's going to be Carlos Martinez that might go not this year, probably next year. We might have Michael Wacha. He's been in talks lately about they might trade him.
Going back to the Carlos Martinez thing, take a look at what the Royals did with Zach Greinke. When they got Lorenzo Cain, Jake Odorizzi, and Uneski Betancourt and Alcides Escobar. And look what, two of those 4 guys aren't with the team anymore. But Jake Odorizzi was paired in a trade to get Wade Davis and James Shields. So trading one guy to get 4, and 3 out of those with Cain, Escobar, Davis, and Shields, those 4 guys helped the Royals in 2014, and then without Shields in 2015 to get where they were at.
to win a World Series. And I mean, it's
Yep.
kind of the same. We might give up they might give up Carlos Martinez. I think that's harder to do than giving up Michael Wacha. They might give up Matt Carpenter. They might give up Steven Piscotty. They might give up Randall Grichuk. But that's the reason why I say the St. Louis Cardinals now have a better chance of doing a restart than making it to the playoffs. And that might be sounding like I'm a bit disappointed with this team, which I am. But it just also makes me look like I'm a Debbie Downer because it's halfway through the season. But when you look at everything, because baseball isn't one-dimensional. It's multi-dimensional. You never know what's going to happen next. I mean, hell, Wednesday night, have you seen the pop-up for third yet? That
Oh,
video?
yeah.
And I'll explain. I worked Wednesday night at the Springfield Cardinals game, and I'm pretty sure all of you have seen it now, where the batter popped it up to pretty much the middle of the infield. Pitcher runs away. All four infielders go in, miss the pop-up, and he gets a triple. That, I mean, first of all, that was crazy. But it just also shows that, it makes me sound like a Debbie Downer, but it also shows, like, that's how the game of baseball is. Everybody up in that media room was for sure that was an out. We were like, all right, that's another out, and we're going to lose the game. Boom. Anything can happen. But how everything, like I said, it's multidimensional. You have to look at every player, every team, how everything is going. It's not going good for the Cardinals, and it doesn't help their chances with other teams winning big, winning it away, winning at home. Teams that, they do the win-2 thing, not only that you win a game, but they lose. So do you know what I'm talking about? I know that sounds weird, but it's just when they face a team that's really close, like the Chicago Cubs, not only that they win one game, they essentially win two because the Cubs also lose. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. I just can't.
I just haven't heard it called that.
Yeah, I can't remember what it's actually called, but I mean that's.
But really though, besides all that, I think we gave our bold picks.
Yeah, we gave our bold picks. We
talked about how good the Astros, Dodgers, and Nationals are.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about how muddled and fucked up the Central divisions are.
Mm-hmm. And how pretty much almost everything is set. And, I mean, not this upcoming week, but 2 weeks from now, I think it will be a week before the trade deadline. We're going to talk about that. We're going to be talking about the trade deadline. But let me reiterate the bold predictions real quick. So Phil said, I'm just going to read all three of yours. Milwaukee will be in the NLCS and lose it in 6. Aaron Judge will win Silver Slugger Award. I'm pretty surprised that you didn't go for Triple Crown. But again, that's much harder to do than anything else in the game of baseball. And you said Houston will lose in the ALCS. For me, and I believe you said 7, correct?
Yeah.
For me, it was the Seattle Mariners making it to the playoffs, even though it is a long, long shot. Hosmer somehow gets traded, Eric Hosmer from the Royals. And then the safe, bold prediction is that the St. Louis Cardinals will restart at the trade deadline. So that is it, folks. That is it for the MLBeers Saturday special, as I want to say here for the MLBeers podcast. So you can find us on Twitter at MLBeers podcast. You can find we have an email at majorleaguebeers@gmail.com. We also have a website, which is the mlbeers.wordpress.com. We have a Facebook, which is just the MLBeers podcast. We are on iTunes, of course. We are on SoundCloud. We are on TuneIn. I need to get on Stitcher. But also, if you want to contact us personally, we are on Twitter. Phil's, what is yours, Phil?
Philco816.
And mine is the real AWS13. Somehow I have this, like, for me as a picture, I'm like looking towards the right in a nice noir looking photo. Phil is always just looking dapper in his photos. We are also, if you want to not only listen to more of our content, we are part of a network, the Tangent Bound Network. Phil, do you want to give a little synopsis of the Tangent Bound Network?
Yeah, essentially what it is, it's a free network that we're a part of, and we cross-promote them, the Tangent Bound Network, and you can go to their website, Tangent Bound Network, and then you can go to their Twitter, Tangent Bound PC. You can see all of the shows that are ran through their network and check them all out for us.
Alrighty, and if that is everything else here for the MLBeers podcast, I hope you enjoyed your all's 4th of July weekend and weekday, and I hope that you enjoyed the crazy tantamount that will be happening at the All-Star Game. So here, from all of us here at the MLBeers podcast, our motto, our creed, our saying, win or lose, there is always booze.
And today's music was Saturday Night Special by Lynyrd Skynyrd and Everything Is All Right by Motion City Soundtrack.